we've sold off nearly 8%, 7.82 or something like that percent on the S&P 500. I believe this is a correction and that we're still going to go make new all-time highs. I think that for a couple of reasons. I'm being told how stupid I am for thinking that, even though I called the day of this top and the sell-off. People, now that we've had a sell-off, as it starts escalating to the downside, more and more of the herd starts all turning bearish, and the perma bears just start calling everybody names. Anybody that thinks that we're going to bottom or still rally. You get all these, Mr. Know-it-alls after it's already happened, which again, I already called the top 2.5 weeks ago, the day it topped and predicted it. It has gone lower than I thought. Told you it might. And again, I warned you about that. But here, again, we've had this sell-off percent. The volatility oscillator is still not breaking out after an 8%, nearly 8% sell-off. Okay, and the S&P trend direction is still positive, and it's come right back here to the center line, and it's turning back up. The S&P topped over here, and this is 2.5 weeks ago that we've had this peak. When the S&P topped back in 2022, we saw the S&P trend direction turn negative the very next week after the January 2022 top. The very next week it turned negative, and then it remained there through the sell-off until we had bottomed and it formed a bullish divergence. We saw volatility. The volatility oscillator, it turned up about 2 weeks after the peak, which again, we peaked 2.5 weeks ago. And again, volatility rose and the S&P tanked in 2022. We don't have that here. So again, my signals right here are not confirming that we've had a top. After a nearly 8% decline on the S&P 500 and dropping for 2.5 weeks, my signals are not validating that as a peak. I told you when we moved into the negative region and moved above the signal line at the January low and hit the 2023 trend line, I thought we were going to bounce off that trend line and see that signal end up failing. It did. And now we're still, even with this sell-off, there's no confirmation to a top. Bigger correction, at least so far. That's why I still don't think that we've topped, one of the reasons. And another reason is because we had the inverting of the yield curve again here with the 10 minus the 3-month. We had that inverting of the yield curve once again. Still think we're going to attempt to recover. I think we're in this large, and we're hitting, where are we hitting? Horizontal support. We've been going nowhere since the election, since November. And let me just do a rectangle here so you can see we've gone nowhere. And again, you got people, the sell-off coming now, yelling double top and all this other stuff. And again, I still think we're going up to this upper channel line. And again, I think that the inverting of the yield curve is likely suggesting that as well. We're now turning back up. What happened is we had inverting of the yield curve over here. We turned up, and I told you we're likely going to get an inverted yield curve again. That's usually very, very common. It happens a lot. And I told you I thought that would be the case, and that happened. I was correct about that. And we've had volatility surrounding that. We had that happen 2 weeks ago. Now we're getting the uninverting of the yield curve again. Now, when we've had this happen before, stock market ended up going to new highs to finish a topping process. So here it is in 2007. The gray shaded area is the recession. What the inverting of the yield curve, when it uninverts, that's what it's predicting. Here in 2007, we had the uninverting of the yield curve in May. Okay, then we went back, and over here in July, we saw it invert once again. We saw it just like what we had happen right now. We saw it invert once again. And as it was inverting again, we had the volatility, which is what we've just had. But look what happened. Weeks after that, we climbed and clawed our way back, all the way back up to make new highs, 25 points above that high, and again, above the previous peak there, at the uninverting of the yield curve, and we still rose. But then as the yield curve was predicting we are going to have a recession by the uninverting, inverting, then uninverting, and then inverting again and uninverting, it's telling you the recession's getting super close. That's what it's telling you. And we had the steepening of the yield curve. Eventually we peaked and the stock market tanked 20% and the Fed panicked. And we got the emergency rate cut, and then everybody applauded, it's over, it's over, it's over. And we had a rebound, and then the bottom fell out of the stock market. And then you're going to see the same exact thing because the Fed believes that we're not going to have a recession. You got Powell out there telling us how strong the economy is and everything. We're going to have a recession. And indicators flashed long before Trump ever won the election. Now, we had the other recession indicators like the 10 minus the 3 month trigger right after the election, but we had other recession indicators, the Psalm rule, the 10 minus the 2, and other signals. Recession is coming. Keep saying Trump's going to inherit a recession. Probably going to get a rally. Now, it's going to be probably favorable seasonality with March and maybe on into April, into tax day. We're going to get the CPI data April 10th, but next week we're going to get the CPI. What if the CPI comes in cool, or that hot CPI previously, if it's tame, comes in as expected, maybe a rally surrounding that. We could see a rally on tariffs again, getting concessions out of the White House. I was telling you, look here, we had the same situation happen and we ended up going higher, rebounding back up. I think we're going to go higher into the trend line I keep talking about, and then I think you're going to get that 20% drop. Those are some of the reasons, and I have others, of why I believe we have not topped yet. Please support the channel with the link directly below that allows me to be able to provide you this information. If you like the charts, you like the indicators, let me know that by supporting the channel today. If you could take a moment to partner with me, I would really, really appreciate it. I don't have any sponsors. They contact me all the time. I turn those offers down. I do not want to sell you anything. There's some shady deals on the internet. I don't want any part of it. So I just ask that you simply partner with me and do what you can to help out. Just follow the link below. It'll take you to a secured site and you can donate any amount you want. If you could take a moment to do that, I would really, really appreciate it. If you like these charts, if you like indicators, let me know that, because it takes a lot of time and effort to do all this. If you could take a moment to respond, I would really, really appreciate it. Watch the video all the way through. I'm going to be talking about, again, the bullish falling wedges. Where are we headed? Where are we headed? Told there's no way we're going to rally. And that we're going to just see the bottom fall out of the stock market right now. And again, that's where you usually get your bottoms, when you get that kind of negativity. It has finally turned bearish. They weren't bearish at the top, but they're bearish now. Down here, likely at the bottom. And the perma bears are telling us there's no way we're going to get a rally. We're going to fall off a cliff and we're all going to die. These groups that get so negative, that's where you usually get the bottom, when you get the negativity. And that's why I'm talking about the AAII sentiment being at extremes. That's why I'm talking about the fear greed index being at extremes, with fear, extreme fear. Talking about this stuff, watch the video all the way through. I'll try to be short. Now, if we rebound as I am predicting is going to happen, surrounding the 200 period moving average, and if we move to new highs as I'm predicting will happen, remember the sentiment here, because again, they're extremely bearish. They weren't bearish at the top, but man, at the bottom, boy, they're sure bearish. They weren't bearish when I called that top and predicted a sell-off, but they're bearish now. And again, the perma bears and the herd, they're all bearish, having a big bear party. Likely a bear trap. And again, if this sentiment this week, 57.1, last week it was a record one-year high, 60.6. We got 19% of bulls over the last 2 weeks here. The bottoms are made of. I'm saying there's a lot of opportunity presenting itself right now. Institutions watch these 200 period moving averages. They're buying, well, the herd is selling at the bottom. Bought at the top. The herd loves to buy tops and sell bottoms. That's what they do best. If we peaked on the February, we peaked with bearish sentiment already in place. 3 weeks of readings above 40, and then we moved to 60s and the 50s as the slide continued. We've topped because you usually top with euphoria. You usually top with really bullish sentiment, not kinds of readings. The same thing with the fear greed index. The January low, we were much of the time still in fear after we had moved off of extreme fear. The January lows, we were in fear, and then we moved only to neutral, and we couldn't break above 50. You never moved to greed. You never moved to extreme greed. A lot of times is what you do is you get a divergence at a top, couldn't even break 50. And now we're back. We moved from neutral back to fear, back to extreme fear. Likely we're witnessing a bottom, and it's likely that we're going to get new highs where we're going to see greed. If we don't make new highs, if we top, then we topped on neutral and we topped with bearish sentiment. Highly unlikely. Now, I think it's important to note as we're hitting key support, NASDAQ's hitting the rising trend line. I talked about that in my last update, but the long-term rising trend line from the 2022 low. S&P is hitting horizontal support. And again, we're hitting this level where we had the July peak, where we had the September high, this area in here, and then it acted as support over here in late September, early October, on into the November low. So this support, it was resistance, then now it's become support, and here we are testing it again. Now, one other thing is while we're hitting the 200 period, we're hitting this horizontal support, you're getting a 9 count reversal signal. Now, we got the 9 count earlier in the week. On Wednesday, we've gone lower and dropped below the 200 period moving average, then closed back above it. We've done that twice now. We tested it earlier in the week there, and then Tuesday tried to bounce off of it, and then we dropped below it there on Thursday. Tested it actually again at the lows on Wednesday, and then got that rally, sold off on Thursday, and then turned down on Friday and rebounded, got the bottoming tail. So again, we've tested this area a couple of times, and now you're getting the 9 count. Sometimes you get the 9 count, you go a little bit lower, a little bit higher. Over here, you get the 9 count, you went a little bit higher, and then you turned. Okay, here you got the 9 count, you went a little bit higher, and then you turned. Here you turned pretty much as it formed. Here you got a 13.9. Okay, and again, you inched a little bit higher, and then you got the sell-off. So again, it's very likely we're going to try to bounce off of this level of support on the S&P. And we did get a 9 count reversal bar there on Wednesday. So again, getting a 9 count reversal bar at the 200 period moving average. You know when the last time we did that? You know when the last time we did that was? At the 2023 low. Actually a 9.9 signal. You had a 13.9. You got a rebound there in October of 2023, and then you move down and you form those divergences, and you get that 9 count at the 2023 bottom, just beyond our 200 period moving average. Where are we right now? Just beyond our 200 period. That's the last time you got a 9 count signal. You drop below the 200 period moving average. Attempted that rebound back above it. I talked about my last update. The last time NASDAQ hit the trend line, it got a big bounce. And we're hitting that 2022 trend line. The last time we hit the 200 period moving average and got a 9 count on the S&P, daily time frame was at the 2023 low. Got to see momentum flip back to bullish. So the bulls have their work cut out for them, but I think you're going to get a rebound back up to the 50. Remember, the 50 is not below. This is the 50. This is the 200. The 50 is not below the 200. Okay, and again, you're likely going to gravitate and rally towards it. That's what markets do. And then a decision's going to be made. Are we going to set up a lower high, or are we going to go get a higher high? That's going to be coming battle. But people telling us, oh, we're just going to keep going, and it's over, it's over, it's over. Again, I'm looking for a top, but I believe we're going to new highs, and I predicted this sell-off from the very day of the top, predicted the sell-off. We've gone lower than I thought. Thought the January low would likely hold, and we've gone just under 2%, about, what was it, 1.8 something percent lower than that And again, there's a confluence of support here. So I think you're going to bottom, and then we'll see if we get a rally as the bulls and bears fight it out. But I'm telling you, if we start moving to new highs, I think we're going to. All the people telling us that that's not going to happen. Birds now bearish. Bears, no possible way. And yet I'm telling you, even though I called this peak, I said the sell-off was going to happen, we've gone lower than a little bit lower than I thought, I still think we're going to rebound at this confluence. And again, I told you, if we did not bounce at the gap fill, if we did not bounce at the gap fill right there and try to bottom above that January low, that I told you this is the area where I thought wave 4 would finish, and then we go and we rebound back up. Yeah, momentum signals remain bearish. The momentum line here, so that bearish reversal of conditions I recently talked about. Again, so we need to see that change if we're going to attempt to rebound. We need to see momentum flip back to bullish and trend signals turn back to bullish, and then we'll see what happens. But we're likely going to rally to that 50-period moving average. My last, again, well, S&P is hitting horizontal support. We're hitting the rising trend line from the 2022 low, pardon me, on NASDAQ. We're hitting that trend line and the 50-week moving average on both. So you got a pretty good shot as S&P's hitting the 50-week and hitting horizontal support, and NASDAQ's hitting rising support here, and they're both hitting the 50-week moving averages in the weekly time frame. You got a pretty good shot. You're going to try to bounce. We can go back to if we bounce, we can go back to those the 50-day moving average on the S&P daily chart. Now, I am getting signals of a possible reversal on the S&P surrounding horizontal support and the 200-period moving average. A couple of days ago, on Wednesday, we tested the 200-period, and again, we ended up dipping below it after that, but I got a bottoming signal suggesting that, again, that we could find a bottom in this area. I got the same signal back before the election rally, okay? And again, signals aren't perfect. Sometimes you get a signal and you go a little bit lower. Here we got a signal, we've gone a little bit lower. So maybe we have a similar situation to what we had back over here, where we got the signal, but then we went a little bit lower. Here we got the signal, we went a little bit lower. Here, it marked a turn. Up here, you've got back-to-back reversal signals before you had the sell-off. Over here, it marked the peak at the reversal point. So again, signals aren't perfect. I'm just telling you that we're getting some signals that we could be bottoming in this area like we did previously at the November low. And we'll see what happens. We rally back up as the bulls and bears fight it out for control. This is we're going to go make new highs, but we'll be watching the 50-period moving average. We'll be watching the trending cloud. We're likely going to move back up towards those levels. Both NASDAQ and S&P have these trending clouds here. 50-period for NASDAQ's way up here, 200 down here, so we're likely going to gravitate towards the 50, towards the 100-period, the pink line there, and towards the trending cloud. We broke it, so again, it's now resistance. So we'll be watching the moving averages, and we'll be watching the cloud. But again, bullish falling wedges are likely going to take us to these levels. And you get, again, people telling us, oh, there's no possible way that's going to happen now. And again, extremely bearish at bottoms. Fear, you get sentiment, and fear and trepidation just take over. Likely going to rebound back to the 50s, back towards the clouds that have now been broken. Here's the NASDAQ. Again, we talked about the fill breakouts previously. This is the NASDAQ daily chart. Let's look at the S&P. The same thing. You've got the cloud overhead near the 100-period moving average, the 50s above that, and the 50s curling over. Still way above the 200-period moving average. So again, we don't have a death cross. You're likely going to gravitate to this level. And then a decision's going to be made. A decision whether we're going to get a lower high or whether we're going to get a higher high, and we're going to keep going. The decision's going to be made as the bulls and bears fight it out. Now, I am in the camp that we haven't topped yet. If we rally back up and we make a lower high and come back and take out the 200, and that's followed by a death cross, and that's it. It says it's not going to play out that way, but that's what would happen if we establish a lower high. I'm just telling you, again, I think you've got a good chance the VIX is going to be right about a bottom surrounding the 200. We're at key horizontal support. I'm getting some bullish signals, but momentum is still bearish. It's got to shift. And if it does, we're headed to the cloud. Okay, we're headed back to just under it or into it before we test near our 50-period moving average, and maybe we overthrow it by the time we reach it, or maybe we gravitate to it. We're going to come up here, and a decision is going to be made. The bulls and bears are going to fight it out and go toe-to-toe and fight it out for control. This is coming. So again, I think you've got a bottom here. My guess is that, again, we're going to rally up, pull back at a higher low. I think we've got the wave 5. I think you're going to see something like this where we rally up and we come back down, and then we end up busting up through that level and we go higher. I'm telling you, bears have taken control. We're going to set up a lower high in this area somewhere. And again, likely if we bounce here, we'll look at our Fibonacci retracements, and they're probably coming up right in this area. If this is a bottom, this is where our Fibonacci's would be at right in here. Our golden pocket, our 61.8 fib to the 78.6 Fibonacci.